Hello, and thanks for joining us for this episode of the 2022 Cocodona podcast series hosted by racing team member Brianna Grigsby. Brianna, who will be running Cocodona for the first time this year, will be sitting down to chat with Dennis Paprocki, Tim Gore, and Peter Ward. Brianna is an ultra runner based out of Tucson, Arizona. Brianna has been running ultramarathons since 2016 and has been continually improving, especially at the longer distance races. After battling an injury before last year's Cocodona, Brianna is back on the entrance list for 2022. Tim Gore is a Colorado-based ultra runner who will be attempting Cocodona this year for the first time. Tim has completed many ultramarathons, including Leadville and the West Highland Way, which is a 95-mile foot race in Scotland. Tim is an Army veteran and former drill instructor. Today, Tim teaches yoga and is the owner of Uprise Performance Company. Dennis Paprocki is an ultra runner, adventure racer, bike mechanic, and owner of two beautiful huskies. Based out of Colorado Springs, Dennis will be attempting Cocodona for the second time after a DNF at last year's race. Dennis has participated in and completed several long-distance adventure races. Dennis is the owner of Bike Filet of Arizona and is an Aravaipa, Colorado employee. Peter Ward is an ultra runner out of Anguilla, which is a small island off the coast of Puerto Rico. Peter Ward will be attempting Cocodona for the second time after a DNF at last year's race. Peter has completed the Burning River 100-mile and is coming off of a strong finish at the Coldwater 100-mile race back in January.
Thanks for joining us, Tim and Dennis and Peter. So good to have you on, and I'm really excited to chat with you about Cocodona 250. I know it's been occupying a lot of mental space for me these days, and probably for you as well. So I just kind of wanted to jump in with, so a couple of you have started Cocodona 250 before, and for reasons, for various reasons, we're unable to finish the race. So I kind of want to jump in with hearing about that experience with Peter and Dennis, who have run part of Cocodona 250 before, and what your experience was like last year. And tell us about why you're coming back to Cocodona 250 for the finish this year. So do you want to go first, Peter?
Yeah, I mean, it was a great experience last year, first and foremost. I think the number one reason why I'm coming back this year is strictly for redemption. It's, there's not many races like this out there. There's 240s, but there's not a 250. And, last year, I wanted to do something special, and it was kind of lined up with, I kind of have a unique work schedule where I live, and it's kind of worked perfectly with my schedule, and I just simply wasn't prepared enough. But I think, doing these crazy things at the end of the day, you look back and crazy things become, really amazing, or really the things that you remember of being, the best times ever. So I'm coming back for redemption. And ultimately to see Arizona. I live on a small island, so it's nice and warm here, but I don't have any mountains, and I love mountains at heart. From New England, love everything mountains. So, Arizona is a great spot where you get a lot of the sun, and also, you can drive up north to the plateau and Flagstaff and get in some mountain running. So it's a fun place to visit when I'm not here, and it has everything I like. But really coming for redemption, and taking what I learned from last year and now trying to put it into something which I'm really looking forward to.
We're definitely going to get back to where you live, because I think you have a really interesting story of your training and what that's looked like for you living on a kind of small island. But first, before I get into that, I want to hear a little bit more about what happened last year. Why were you unable to complete the race? I've looked you up a little bit on Instagram. You were about 95 miles in, right?
Yeah, I dropped at, I believe it was Iron King was the aid station. A lot of just amateur mistakes. I don't think I think Versteeg said it best in the documentary, regarding just like, it's not like every other race. And I just simply was not prepared. I could kind of finish a normal 100-mile, maybe without, being completely tuned up and trained, but this was a different monster. I think the lack of strength training going into the race really affected affected my, me moving forward and just, being still a relative newbie. I dealt with some blisters leading up to the race in training. I ran without shoes on about 3 weeks before the race and destroyed my feet. So I then became a blister scientist, over the couple, weeks coming up to the race. And I ended up running with 2 pairs of socks on and wasn't getting blisters. And I thought, well, if this is good, clearly I like doing extreme things. So I put 3 pairs of socks on and still no blisters. However, my feet swelled up so intensely by mile 95. I just, I was just doing things completely wrong. Certainly was prepared for the heat being where I live, but there's a lot of strategy and, knowing what that first section is like going into the race this year is going to be a huge advantage. And now kind of working in some strength training and realizing that you can't just go out and finish one of these things was quite humbling. And I'm excited to come back. This year I've, Jamil just stepped off, but Jamil has literally hijacked my life with the creation of this race. It's everything I think about from the second I wake up to when I go to sleep. I don't know what it is. It's such a cool concept, and whether it's Dylan Harris creating these, documentaries that are just next level, and you feel like you want to relive it again. So I'm just excited to get back there and run with a bunch of all these other amazing people doing amazing things, and I'll open the floor.
I think my friends are getting a little bit tired of me by now because everything I talk about is Cocodona. It's like Cocodona this, Cocodona that. They're probably going to be happy once I'm done the race and just talk about something else for once. But I want to hear also from Dennis about what's your story with what happened last year and what motivated you to want to come back and go for the finish this year.
For sure. So, Peter hit it on the head. Once you start this thing and you don't finish it, it's about redemption, taking what I learned last year and moving that forward to this year. It was a crazy journey last year. I started it with my cousin from Wisconsin, and me being the one that lived in Arizona for a total 25 years prior to last year's start. I thought I would do better with the heat, but I had moved to Colorado in February last year and started a new job, which was also a promotion at work into management. And between the move and the excessive amount of work I was doing with the new job, my training just went downhill really quick, and it was super cold leading up to that. And I went into it just not prepared and ready mentally or physically for the heat. Struggled into Crown King and missed the cutoff and just was trashed. I was without water for about 4 to 5 hours. I'd given up water to a couple people that I'm traveling with. We were all in survival mode. Got to Crown King and just didn't have it. And I was sick and ended up getting an IV. We ended up shuttling forward, turning crew and pacers, and picked up my cousin. He came into, I might pronounce this wrong, but Camp Wamatochik. He came into there, and from there I ended up jumping in and pacing him to the finish. So felt better after that once we got up into altitude and a little bit cooler temps, and doing the final leg with him as well, watching him cross the finish line, like literally turning into that alley and him go down that alley. And I had lived in Flagstaff for 10 years, and it was a huge dream of mine to be able to finish that race in downtown Flagstaff, where I've spent a lot of time. And watching him cross that line, I immediately said, I'm definitely doing this next year. And as soon as the day the registration opened, I had signed up again. So I was ready. I'm ready to go. Hopefully, I haven't had good heat training this year. We did go back and did that first section to Crown King. Motivation this year is my cousin is coming now. So he's going to crew as well as one of our crew members from last year. And I'm actually doing the race with my girlfriend. We're going to travel together the whole thing. And that's going to be enormous motivation for me to keep her moving and just working together to cross the finish line together. So we're super excited for it. So
awesome. And you've actually seen quite a bit more of the course then, since you ended up pacing after you dropped out last year, huh?
Right. Yeah. And I really look forward to the change they made this year, because I think they addressed the two sections that I think moving forward, it's going to be some great improvements, and super excited for the new Sedona section, especially, as well as the dropping into Jerome. I think they're both awesome. And also to add, the extra water station being 33 is going to be critical.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a big improvement. Going to put us all a little bit more at ease. So how about you, Tim? What made you decide to sign up for Cocodona?
Going through that section. Okay.
Was that Dennis? Dennis said something. I missed it. Oh, so.
Oh, go ahead. You guys go ahead. It was nothing. Go ahead, Tim.
Okay. Yeah. So why am I doing it? I woke up asking myself that, after I signed up for it, or like right before it. So I've done, like you're in the intro, right? I've done Leadville, and I've done Scotland race. I've done Mattahay, which is a 107-mile race in North Dakota, and had to learn how to run in the heat to finish that, because it was 100 degrees almost all day. So I did that and went back this year and tried the 150, and I felt really good at 95, but the weather kind of came in, and if you've been in North Dakota in the rain, everything's clay and mud, and I basically couldn't get through it, right? So I bailed on it. I'm like, I'm not doing anything again until the 150 next year. I'm going to try it again. And then Morgan is like, you should sign up for Cocodona and do it, with me. And I'm like, no, is what I said at first. No, I don't got nothing to prove. I'm 54 years old. And then I was like,
there's no age limits.
Yeah, I know, but I'm like, I'm close to the end of wanting to do this all the time and run in the winter to train for it, like a springtime race or a summer race. And, but I said this year would be the year. Like, so for me, it's more of a mental health thing, right? Veteran with PTSD, and coming out there to Arizona, where my fellow brothers all live that went through this post-traumatic growth thing with me out at Boulder Crest, Arizona, and Sonoita. So for me, I run for them, right? And I run for me. So what does my training look like? I mean, it's more mental for me. I average about 50 or 60 a week, but that it's just more mental, and being out there and knowing to push through, and know I have other people to run for. So that's why I'm there. I blame it all on Morgan. I'm not taking responsibility.
It's her fault. So you already kind of jumped in a little bit to what your training has looked like in terms of mileage. You said about 50, 60 miles a week. Are you trying to get in any vert goals, or running like trail versus road, or what is more specifics of like what your training has looked like for this?
So I pretty much do all of that. Where I'm probably going to spend this week on is more like just actually getting out to the foothills we have over here. Other people would call mountains, but just the foothills of the mountains, right? And do the power hike, run like power hike, just to get back accustomed to that. So my training has mostly been on the trail. I live right by Red Rocks open space. So if you've been to Colorado Springs, you kind of know where that's at. It's a mile run into the trail, and then it's trail the rest of the way, and uphill as much as I can go.
Mm-hmm.
So
are you going to be using poles this year, or have you been training at all with poles?
We went out last week at 9:00 at night. We could go on a trail excursion through for about 3,000 or 4,000 feet of climbing up through the mountains, and I used the poles. Yeah, I'll be using poles.
Awesome.
Does everybody use poles, or doesn't everybody, or is there other people that don't out there?
I don't know. How about you guys, Peter, Dennis? Poles, no poles?
So I used poles last year. One ended up breaking on me. So this time I will certainly have a backup set. Again, amateur, mistakes. I have not been practicing with poles simply because there's really no mountains here or anything that can propel me, I will start probably doing a couple runs just to make sure, the straps aren't annoying my hands, or kind of just to get used to them, again, something like that. But I will be using poles out there for sure.
What about you, Dennis?
Gotcha. Yeah, and me too. Definitely, for sure. Yeah, I used them all through my adventure racing career, and anytime I'm allowed to use them, ultra, I always use them. I'm getting old, so every little bit helps. Got to use this upper body I've got, so that helps for sure. My girlfriend too, she's got bad knees, so the poles help her a little bit on the descents and stuff for stability, especially as rocky as it is in Arizona. And like Peter said, definitely want to bring a spare pair. The poles we are using are super ultra crazy light. So there's no real downside to carrying them in my opinion, but they are fragile. So we each have an extra set to have with us as well if we need them. So not carrying them, but crew will have the extra set for us. So.
Yeah, fun fact about Dennis here is that he's run over 250 adventure races. Is that right?
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely. Like the really major
adventure
yeah.
race.
What's that?
I was going to say that's quite a lot of adventure races. You get in like multi-sport races or events with these, right?
Right. Yeah. So that's adventure racing in a nutshell is a combination of mountain biking, trail running, and mountaineering, kayaking, and whatever other weird stuff they might throw in there. But yeah, that's the sport was huge in the mid '90s through 2010, somewhere in there, and they range in length anywhere from 2-hour sprints to 10-day expedition races, and all of those are done in a team format, so you all travel together. And it's all map and compass usually too. So they throw in the navigation side of things. So grew up doing a lot of those, and then that sport kind of died off around 2010, and then needed to find something to do around ultra running. So it's definitely. I feel the mental side is something that I help gain in that sport, but still gain the physical side of things and trying to run more because I was never a super strong runner. So I try to lean on that mental side of things quite a bit.
You're going to be bringing from that adventure racing background into Cocodona is that mental. Sounds like some of the adventure races were quite long too. So that mental piece was really an important part, I bet.
For sure. Sleep management is huge. Nutrition, huge. And then obviously the mental side of it as well. The nice racing is you are switching disciplines. So if you're, running or mountaineering for a day or two, it's nice to be able to switch to the bike to relieve the issues you're having physically in whatever discipline it is. Whereas obviously with something like Cocodona, your body is going through a lot of trauma every day and having to manage that so you can keep going. So.
Yeah. What does your training look like, Dennis, for Cocodona?
We've been through the winter. We definitely did quite a bit of cross-country skiing and running as much as we can. We had a pretty mild winter, luckily, so running has been pretty easy to be able to continue this winter compared to last winter. I struggled a little bit more with the weather and just time availability last year, but the heat is definitely something I have not been able to train in. When we went to Phoenix a couple of weeks ago, it was slated to be in the 90s, and it ended up being in like the 50s and 60s. It was like what we left. It was warmer back home than it was in Arizona, so that kind of was a bust. But just going to heat training wise, obviously haven't been able to do much, so I just got my head wrapped around it a lot more this year and try to stay on top of hydration. We've got a couple cool things we're trying to wear as well. Hopefully those will help a little bit with the heat. As far as mileage and hours, we've been doing just a lot of slow, steady stuff. Last year, we didn't run much. We just aren't in that fitness category to be able to run 250 miles. So I'm just doing really, as many hours as possible and not really worried about mileage. Doing some vertical, but just really focused on just time on feet and just getting out there and training with the equipment we want to use and nutrition stuff and just trying to focus on that and just putting in as many hours as we can every time we go out. So.
Doing any sauna training at all, or any using the sauna at all for heat adaptations?
I haven't. I'm just trying to lean on my experience living in Phoenix and praying for cooler temps this year. If not, I think I hopefully just mentally I've wrapped myself around that it's just going to be a sufferfest. Just the faster we go and get to high elevation, the faster we get out of the heat. So, and try to travel as quickly at night as possible as well. Try to, it's hard though, because you can't really sleep when it's, 95 degrees outside in a parking lot somewhere. So there's that drawback. It's like you want to be able to get quality sleep, but also if we feel we can move more miles at night, then we're going to try to take advantage of that. So.
Peter, I'm interested to hear about your training too. So we already talked about how you live on an island, Anguilla, and from my Wikipedia research, Anguilla is 16 miles long and about 3 miles across at the widest point. Is that correct?
You are correct. Yeah. So it's about 16 miles long. And the roads are a little iffy to run because, they're not quite as wide as the roads back in the States. So I tend to stay off kind of the beaten path. And what I've been able to work within here is just, ever from the day I moved here, I was always kind of searching for the open areas. There's a lot of, rocky coastline and cliffs where there's kind of, I call it sketchy coral. And it's, very technical running along the coast. And I do that a lot. And I have, our Strava segments where I set times. There's a couple of routes that I do to get some longer running in. If you know me though, I don't like loops. I love just kind of doing long journeys. So it is a little bit harder to get motivated to do a long run here when, I'd love to just strap on a pack and, crush miles of trail. But here, you got to get up really early because it gets so belligerently hot during the day as well. So it's really trying to manage the training in, around the heat and, also around kind of the I guess, slightly more aggressive traffic that you get on a remote island compared to, having a nice sidewalk or, a lot of lovely hiking trails to run on. But I think I'm not at a disadvantage. If anything, I'm probably at an advantage just because of the heat is so intense for so many sections of this course, whether it's the first section and, I've certainly watched all the videos and, heard all about how hot Sedona was. So I'm very fortunate that I've been able to kind of take advantage of the heat here. And I try to, if I can get out of work in the middle of the day, I'll go, I'll do a run in the middle of the day to kind of get myself heat adapted. But yeah, it's definitely not my normal. I'm not running a lot of trails. It's more very rocky coastline where you have to be laser focused on picking every spot. So I'm certainly prepared for that first section. It's actually quite similar to some of the dirt roads we have around the island. Those trails that just are all rock and almost like one car has driven down it ever type of thing. So I'm really, lucky that believe it or not, even how small it is, I can actually do a lot of training that I believe will be very similar to what we'll be experiencing out there in just a couple weeks now. So it's I'm fortunate for how hot it is to get prepared for this one.
And you have to contend not just with heat, but with humidity too. Am I right? Being on an island, I would imagine it's pretty humid there. Yeah,
humid, very, very, very humid. And I think the heat is the game changer in this race. And that's what I think. So I actually went on Amazon and even being out here, I bought one of those little, it's almost like a clothes steamer that hooks up to a little tent almost. I kind of lock myself in this box and turn the steamer on, and it turns in like this little steam room. And I've been really trying to get heat adapted, even for that really just kind of that high temperature any way I can, because even from being out here, I will forever remember that first section from last year. And you certainly want to be ready for it, whether it's with, the right equipment, enough water. Yeah, so I've been really preparing for the heat.
Awesome. And you actually recently ran around the entire island of Anguilla, right? And as a fundraiser for the families that live there?
Yeah, so that was actually before the race.
Okay.
The September before the race last year. The island shut down because of COVID, and my buddy and I came up with the idea here to do a circumnavigation of the island, and we don't think anyone has ever done it. So we did a few months of course recon and threw our own little mini race here, and was able to raise a bunch of money for charity. And I think we raised $15,000. We're able to give $100 vouchers to locals from the supermarket here. And it took a little over 12 hours to run around the entire island, and that was an interesting day. But that was, coastline, sharp coral, beaches, and that was I thought was good preparation for Cocodona, maybe just a few 2 months early.
Yeah. Sounds like a pretty technical route that you took.
Yeah, but it's so beautiful, so it's worth it. And it's, as long as you're paying attention, it's really it's not too difficult. But what's nice is that it is kind of unique. So when you go out there, you're usually the only one out there, and it's almost like, it's literally like you're walking on Mars, because that's what the topography is like. You're walking on this, limestone and coral. It really feels like you're in Mars and you're in the middle of nowhere. So yeah, it's quite an interesting training ground. I was lucky. I was able to sneak over to Flagstaff for about 5 days. A couple weeks ago, I found a break in the schedule at work and was able to go in. I climbed Eldon a few times, did my post-holing for the year. I don't miss post-holing. So hopefully all that snow on the top of Eldon will be gone by the time we're back there in 2 weeks.
Yeah, I'm hoping so too. I did Eldon a couple weeks ago, and I also experienced post-holing myself. Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about race strategy. What's your race strategy going to look like, or have you thought about what that's going to look like? You want to go first, Tim?
Yeah, I'll go first. So I mean, I've never been out there, so I don't know what it's like. I've run in Arizona, and I've run, kind of all over Arizona actually, and in the heat. So like, I've got a good heat strategy, because North Dakota in the summer is like humid and 90 some odd degrees to 100 degrees. So I've got a pretty good strategy. I actually enjoy running in the heat. So, my strategy there is pretty good. As far as the rest, it's the unknown. I don't know. I'm mostly following Morgan on this, because she's been out there a few times, right? And she knows it. And she's really, what is the word I want to use here in this forum? She's really cognizant about all the details. So I'm just more following her for that. I think so. For me, when I've done a few hundreds, and a couple of them did me. I did the 150. I learned how I had to actually rest, right, and sleep. So I learned how, like, what I could operate on, because all the other hundreds I just went straight through. But this, I knew I'd have to rest at night. So I was able to get down and get 3 hours sleep, right? And I think 2 or 3 hours. And I think that's going to be factored in there, like if we can figure that out, even at night, I don't mind giving up a little of the moving at night in order to get rest. So that's like factors into my strategy, because like I said, at 54 and doing a few of these, like for the last 7, 8 years, I've realized that the rest you take for granted, like, and keeping your heart rate. The other thing is keeping your heart rate below my lactic threshold, and so trying to maintain that throughout the whole time, and just keep keep moving and move when you're supposed to move and rest when you're supposed to rest. That's my strategy.
Are you planning on like when or where you're planning on sleeping? Or are you just going to kind of wing it and see when your body feels like you need that sleep?
I think that the one thing that I'm pretty certain of is we want to get past that first craziness, right?
Sure.
Like well past that, like put some additional miles on past that and then rest. But I've read a few blogs where people start out with this great plan, right? And then they're like, first night of rest, 0, right? So we'll see. But that is the plan, you know. And for Morgan, who hasn't been, you know, past hasn't been 100 miles yet, right? It'll be more balancing like what she wants to do, and we, you know, feed off each other pretty well. So yeah, we'll see how that goes. So yeah, I plan on being well past that point before we rest, right?
And the two of you are planning to do it together then?
Yeah. So we tell each other, like, we're the only two people that can put up with each other that far, because we just don't care what the other one says, right? And we get along pretty well. Nothing hurts our feelings, so we just say whatever we want, and it's pretty awesome. So,
are you having crew pacers, or the two of you pacing each other, or what's the plan?
So we're not going to have any pacers, but we're going to have 2 crew. And one of the crew members is Marcus Jones, who was my very first soldier we deployed to war together in the Army. Also a PTSD's been through Boulder Crest at all. He's going to crew and drive whatever, you know, so it'll be cool. There'll be that extra motivation out there to finish. And I think that for me, like I said, it's the mental health is my strategy, is staying in the right attitude the whole time. So,
yeah. And to be honest, I think that is like the most important in these really long races. I think that mental game matters even more than your physical fitness at these like super distances. I mean, I haven't run a 200 or let alone a 250 yet, but that's my thoughts on it.
I see it too. And I love how Dennis said earlier, like, we've just been doing these things and staying out there, like, right, and making sure you're getting the time on your feet. And I think if you do that and you keep your head in the right spot, you know, now we kind of have talked to each other, so we'll be able to encourage each other on the trail too. And I think that's what the beauty of this is. And I've never done didn't do it last year, but I can feel it and see it in what you guys are saying. So I think that's part of the strategy too.
Dennis, what's your strategy?
Yeah, like he just said, the community out there and the support out there is phenomenal. The aid stations are just top notch, and just everybody's so encouraging. And the other racers, the other crews, you know, it really is this amazing just family of things in this moving thing that just as you go. And as far as strategy, yeah, I just want to get through that first 38 miles. That's going to be a huge sigh of relief for me. Just get through that, rehydrate, get some fuel, keep moving. As far as sleep strategy, we're going to just wing it. I feel over planning things just sets yourself up for failure, and you just don't know how you're going to feel, how your body's going to react. With Charlotte, my girlfriend, she hasn't done you know, sleep deprivation situations much. She is a mother of 3, so I know she understands that to a certain degree as well. But actually being out there and doing something, you know, 22, 23 hours a day is going to be new to her. One thing I definitely remember from my long distance adventure races are day one, I would always suffer the first night. But the body does adapt. The mind adapts, especially if you can push through that and get through that first night of no sleep, and then start letting the body adapt and realize it's going to have to figure it out. And you know, dirt nets were popular last year for us. You know, when my cousin was suffering and literally sleepwalking and bouncing off of trees and stuff like that, we're like, maybe it's time for 10 minutes here. So we would do that until we started freezing. in the higher elevation stuff. And then it's like, all right, time to go. And a lot of times 10, 15-minute cat naps make a big difference. So that's kind of our strategy. Keep moving, try to keep our mileage, minimum of 50 a day. And just our goal is just to finish this thing and come out of it still friends and enjoying each other's company. Once he hit that point, I was like, well, time for a dirt nap. So, we would try to let him sleep a little bit here and there. I was telling these guys at that point, we had him take a nap, and I did not. I was freezing at the time. I didn't bring enough clothes for the last section going up Eldon, and got really cold that night. So let him sleep for about 10, 15 minutes. And then I had turned my headlamp back on, and we were surrounded by, I didn't know what they were, but it turned out to be a bunch of deer. So a bunch of green eyes surrounding me. And I'm like, all right, dude, you got to wake up. We're out of here.
Awesome. So gonna wing it,
Bryce.
gonna kind of wing it on the sleep this week. Yeah. Peter, what about you? What's your strategy?
So, like I said before, this race has kind of taken over my brain quite a bit. So I've certainly been thinking a lot about it. I've been listening to all the interviews that are all over the place on Spotify, YouTube, trying to, get even a better sense of what to expect out there, considering I didn't finish. So I really want to go in with a good strategy, and I have high goals for this season. So I think ultimately I'm going to try to get out of the desert. That's my main goal. And then last year I slept at Wanamatochik. I may have added a syllable there. But I think I'd wait. I think this year I'd probably run through that aid station and keep going and try to sleep during the day, even though that might be difficult with how hot it is. But I think my strategy is to take a lot of advantage of the night and try to get out of that hot weather, get into the woods, keep going until it's can't go any farther. And hopefully by then it's already warm on the second day. Take a crash from there. And then it's kind of run my own race from Sedona on in. I trained on most of those trails, post-hold a lot of the way up from, I think I did Muds Park to Fort Tuthill. It's like almost like a winding bike path all the way up with a quite interesting section. So I think it's just going to be, grinding out towards the end, trying to stay cool, have a solid ice strategy, not wear 3 pairs of socks and thin shoes, going with a thicker shoe this year as well. I think just the rocks, even as much as you train, and I love running with a nice light shoe, but I think this season we're going to go with a bulkier shoe to be able to kind of just take on all of those rocks for that first main section, and maybe not maybe taking a little easier on the downhills. Got excited last year and was smashing some of the downhills pretty early. And I think from what I've been learning and researching, it seems that that's one way to have your race end early. So, just being smart, remembering to enjoy myself out there. Last year I had a buddy fly out to be a pacer and he never even ran. So I've got another buddy flying out to pace me this season. And I'm excited to make it to where I can run with him. And I'm just kind of really just focus on relentless forward progress and smashing that plaque in the middle of Heritage Square and cross that finish line that I've watched Versteeg do so many times on that Dylan Harris documentary.
It's going to be an awesome moment for sure. Do you have a strategy for your nutrition?
So that was a big one that I also messed up big time last year. I bought a bunch of products that I'd never tried before. I have a logistical problem out here of actually getting things. So there's no running store to pick up products. I can't get goos. If I want to order a goo, it will take, I have to use a forward shipping service. So it's just very difficult to get products out here. So last year I didn't train at all. This year, definitely going with calorie per hour. I've tried my gels. I did the cold water rumble 100 in January, kind of tested out, found out what worked, what didn't work. So I'm getting more dialed in, and still working on the kinks of more the hydration strategy. Nutrition strategy, I feel like, is pretty easy. Calories in per hour, maybe fluctuate a little bit. I'm definitely a salt sweater, heavy sweater. So where my issue always has been is as soon as my electrolytes get off or my hydration gets off, that's when my stomach goes and I slow down. So really trying to focus on my hydration strategy for calculations on how much I'm going to need on that first section compared to when I'm running at night, and managing that. My very first 100 was a cold water rumble that I didn't finish. And then I did a Burning River 100, and I actually was at an aid station, I believe, at like 85 miles, and was having so many issues. And one of the gentlemen at the aid station was asking me what was going on, and I was like, oh, I chugged pickle juice at one aid station, and that made me feel alive. And then I started doing it at every single aid station. So I've actually kind of overdone it on the electrolytes and gotten like electrolyte poisoning. So kind of certainly managing that hydration and going in with a strategy instead of like, drink when I'm thirsty, and also be very strategic in how much I'm bringing. I've watched the documentary a few times, and you notice, I think Maggie a couple times towards the end says she ran out of water in a few sections. So, we're all sitting here worrying about this first section, but I'm doing my research and I really want to be prepared. Running out of water is not ideal, no matter what. So not only just making sure I have a strategy on having enough, a big enough bladder or whatever handhelds to carry the amount of water that we really need for some of these sections.
Any specific products you're planning to use?
So I've been trying, it's the Scratch. It's not Scratch Hide. I don't even know the name of it. Scratch Super Fuel, I believe, maybe it's the new one. I've been trying that. I'm still on the fence of what works best for me, liquid calories or regular calories, and water and electrolyte mix. So still on the fence. We'll see. I'm certainly going to have that with me. I will have Scratch Hydrate. I certainly have all the goos with the, some with the sodium. I didn't realize, how complicated it can get, because now all of the products have everything we need. So, you can very easily take the wrong gel, and next thing you know, you just took 150 milligrams of caffeine, a bunch of sodium, and then you're drinking one of your, the super fuel, and you're getting tons of sodium in there. So it's really making sure that I've got all of the numbers, on all the different products to make sure we're not overdoing it, because all these products do have, you look at the Roctane gels, there's 35 milligrams of caffeine, amino acids, there's sodium. So just making sure I'm not overdoing it, because clearly I think most of us on this podcast probably like overdoing things, considering we're all running a 250-mile race.
Socks included, right?
Yeah, just not overdoing it on everything is my overall race strategy.
More is not always better, right?
I got a question for you, if this is okay. What's your hydration strategy?
I am a very salty sweater like you are, and I drink very little plain water during races unless I am having salt caps or salty food with it. I rely pretty heavily on liquid nutrition in shorter races, anything from like 50K to 100K. I haven't really tested the liquid nutrition strategy at 100-mile or longer distance, but I love Goo Roctane drink mix, 250 calories a serving, and I mostly drink that in shorter races, along with having a few gels toward the beginning of the race when I still feel like I can tolerate them. I feel like I have a pretty good handle on when my sodium is getting low. Like I feel like I can feel it. And I kind of know like when to take salt caps, and that feeling goes away within, a few minutes of taking salt caps. And if it didn't go away with salt caps, then I know that wasn't the issue. But I feel like I'm pretty tuned in on that now, but we'll see how that works out over 250 miles. It's obviously going to be a lot different than a 50K or 100K distance with the liquid calories and electrolyte management. But yeah.
I listened to some podcasts. I think some runners did mostly liquids almost all the way through. I believe Josh Locke was one of them. I think he said that he was just, it was lots of just fluid calories the whole way through. So
Maggie did mostly Tailwind last year, from what I heard. And yeah, I'm not planning on doing solely liquid calories, but it is going to be definitely a piece of the strategy for me. Yeah. Tim, what about you? What's your nutrition strategy look like?
Oh, what's worked best for me, like over all these different times, is actually eating well and a lot the 2 days before. Like I just preload. So, and during the race, I try to front load all the food that I can, right? I don't use energy gels at all, goo, nothing like that, because it just, for me, for my system, right? I'm like, no. And so I will tell you this, like the one thing that has saved my arse on all of the ones that I've finished is bacon. Because it's got like all of that, like makes you feel good, right? So we've talked about it already. It's your mental state, right? If you feel good, you're going to keep going. A goo does not make me feel good, right? It never has. So I eat bacon. I eat peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. I eat every damn thing that I can, ramen, whatever it is, and I buy it in buttloads, right? And bring it, and then I donate what I don't use to the shelter here, right? Because it's usually
awesome.
right. So there's like that side benefit, right? That I'm telling myself. But as far as like the liquid stuff, I use the Scratch Super Fuel. Every one that I've finished, I've used Scratch Super Fuel, and it's awesome. And I do drink like lots of water. And Morgan, she's gonna tell those I got on her nerves when she pays for me in Matahay the year I finished it, but I made them carry like one of the what is it? I've got this thing. What is this thing? The
Hydro Flask?
Yeah, the hydro. I made them carry one of those with cold water in it each time. So I'm going to carry one of those because it keeps it cold the whole time. So just when you feel like crap again, a piece of bacon and that, right? And I'm good. And you just keep going, man. So
it's the mental strategy with the foods too, right? What foods make me feel happy?
What makes me feel happy? You know what tastes really good is one of those waffle things, right? With the honey stinger waffle things with peanut butter on it. I mean, I feel really good after that. And I'm like, let's go, let's do this. And
peanut butter belongs on pretty much everything, in my opinion. So
it does, right? It does. But I just don't get scientific about it all. I eat. I just eat until I can't eat anymore. I eat past when I'm full, and I just eat normal food. And I've been training like that too. And last thing here, the best training advice I ever had was run on a full stomach for these things. So I will run to Thunder and Buttons, Dennis, you're from Colorado Springs, get a beer and a burger and fries. I'll do 10 miles to get there and run another 10 miles after that. And that's how I get used to this.
That's hardcore.
That's my nutrition plan.
Nice.
What about you, Dennis?
Well, I guess I'm kind of a combination of both of those guys because I'm all about the bacon too. But yeah, a combination of what I call engineered fuel, which is gels, bars, waffles, chews, and liquid calories for sure. I definitely find doing more liquids in the heat. I don't have as much of an appetite in the heat, so it's harder for me to choke down a burrito or a wrap or something when it's 95 degrees outside. So I'll make sure to stick with liquids. I love watermelon and oranges and bananas in the aid stations. So definitely a combination of things. And then I feel, by day 3, when all in eating is engineered foods, sorry, switch to stuff that is just calories, and whatever that ends up being, we're going to bring a huge variety of stuff. I always categorize my foods in adventure racing with either salts or sweets. And if all I had left were salts, then I probably crave sweets, and then vice versa. So try to have a good combination of stuff. But yeah, I've got, you name it, anywhere from super unhealthy oatmeal cream pot to, just fruit. And my girlfriend Charlotte, she's much cleaner. She's eating steel cut oats, and that, but she loves that stuff. So we're gonna probably just have a combination of stuff. I know our crew is gonna have some treats for us along the way, some pizza in probably downtown Prescott, and then maybe a cheeseburger and up in Flagstaff from Five Guys. Just have some garbage, but at least have some calories going in, because by then we're be wanting to eat anything that we can get in front of us. So kind of a combination of the two, between the engineered foods and just good tasting food.
Yeah, I've got my restaurant list as part of my spreadsheet for my crew. That's definitely important. A part of my plan is which restaurants I want to get food from along the way. So I think I want to close with asking you each 2 questions. So first question is, what are you most excited for about Cocodona? And the second question is, what are you most nervous about? Any takers to go first?
Peter.
Peter, you have on.
I'll go first. I think I'm most excited about this year is, actually following it for, signing up. The second registration became available, and kind of following the hashtags on social media and watching all of these other runners post their training stories, and kind of getting to meet all of these people that I've kind of been watching behind the scenes, running into people at other races the one that I did throughout the year, and, getting to meet people that I know will be back at the race. So kind of getting to see the little running community that I don't really get to have out on a remote island. So really excited for that. Excited for my my crew and my friend, Jamil. In the video, just like he's like, I want, I created this so, it inspires someone to do something, or, be better. And just, I noticed that, one of my best friends, who wasn't really a runner, he's coming out to crew, and, he's now been sending me his 10-mile runs that he's been doing. And, that to me has already, made me so happy to already see one of my good friends kind of now get into running and start enjoying it, and running trails, all, just simply to come help me. And that has now motivated him to, do it on his own. And kind of, that's what I'm most excited about. I'm terrified for only having one pacer, coming from a small island and not being from Arizona, probably like many of the other, many of the athletes here, just, it's not difficult to get people to come out there in the middle of the week to pace you. So I'm glad my best friend's been putting in all those miles, because I don't think he knows quite yet how many miles that he might be doing out there, or I might need him for. So more just kind of, yeah, that's what I'm most, nervous about, is, being out. I know how far I like to push myself, and kind of being out there alone, maybe towards the end at night, hallucinating more than you would in, let's say, 100-mile race. I've never really experienced going through night 2 or night 3. So if anyone out there wants to come pace some sections, I'm definitely open. And
Peter is down for that. How can potential pacers contact you, Peter?
They can, I guess, they could email me, or I guess the best way, I do have Instagram, is PJ Wheezy. That would probably be the best way. A quick instant message through there. I am in all the Facebook runner groups under Peter Ward, or the Cocodona 250 runner groups. yeah, I'd love if anyone out there is interested in pacing towards the end, I'd love to definitely talk to you and bring you on board.
Yeah. Dennis, how about you? What are you most excited for, and what are you most nervous about?
Most excited is just the journey. Out there to win it, rather to just cross that finish line probably Saturday morning with very little time to spare. Just experiencing that with my friend. She's been through a lot personally the last few years, and I just met her right before Cocodona last year, and she was following me like religiously, me and my cousin online, and we were texting a lot, just we were moving slow, and just it was something to do at 2 a.m. and shoot her a text. And she was very motivating then. And when we got back and did a race, or we just met up for our first get together outside of work, because we work together. We just talked about the experience, and she was just fascinated by it. And she was like, my gosh, I could never imagine even remotely doing something like that. So when I signed up, I literally signed her up as well. I talked to Steve, and I put a deposit down for her, and she found out she was doing it. And so it's been huge motivation for both of us, huge focus, something we want to do and complete together and share that experience together. And if we're blessed to cross that finish line, which we plan on doing together, it's going to be life-changing for both of us, and especially her. So I look forward to having that as motivation to get there. Definitely the most nervous question. Obviously, the obvious answer for me is the heat. But I feel I'm going to get through that. No problem. Not no problem. I don't want to say it that easily, but having her and being more mentally prepared this year, that's the thing I'm most nervous about, I think. And but I know we're going to get through that. Okay, we're just going to take our time that first day, and like then just race our own race, and just keep each other moving. And our crew has also been training, so they're both trained to be pacers at some point during the race. So we'll lean on those guys when we need extra help, and experience it all together as a team. And we look forward to that and sharing the experience and all the ups and downs, and just getting that belt buckle this year. So
Awesome. Tim, what are you most excited and most nervous about?
I'll start with the most nervous, right? Because it's 250 miles. That's what I'm the most nervous about, right? I have been tested, on 100 and 107, and I think I would have finished the 150, barring the weather, right? So, but 250, I'm a little nervous about. So, and snakes, I'm always nervous about snakes. Nobody likes, at least nobody I know likes snakes. So those two things, right? What am I most looking forward to? Well, there's three things real quick, and one of them is, like I mentioned before, all of the brothers, and I look at them as brothers. They're more like my brothers than my actual brothers that went through that PT, post-traumatic growth thing in Sonoyta, Arizona, will be there as well. So some of them, part of that thing is like you have to get out and you have to start doing physical stuff. Some of these guys have not done anything physical, whether it was because of their mental state or whatever after they left the Army, or they were just too broke. And they've been moving now because things like this inspires them, right? So they're going to be out there. So I look forward to that. Like I mentioned, my the first soldier I ever had that worked for me is going to be there. And I look forward to experiencing that. And so for me, this is the beginning of the end of a era in my life, right? Of this ultra running for this many miles and spending this much time doing it. And I'm looking forward to getting that started and then moving on to the next chapters in my life, which I've got kind of planned out. And they include being in places like where Peter lives, right? and running 5 miles on, through the Belize. Like it's the beginning of the end of a season that I've enjoyed for a long time. And I've been blessed enough to have this health that I've had to be able to make it and spend time with all of you kind of people like we're the best community out there. And what Jamil has done here is an amazing thing to bring all of this together. So I look forward to that, like the beginning of the end of that season as well.
Yeah.
And hanging out with Morgan for 5 days straight.
That's going to be a good time.
It will be. I'm making bruised at the end of it. So.
Well, thanks so much for joining us, you guys. I really appreciate you taking the time from your busy schedules and your training and work and everything that you're doing to be here. And I'm super excited to meet all of you in 3 weeks, about 3-ish weeks from now. Or wait, it's Monday, so 3 weeks exactly.
Yeah.
So,
Real.
yeah, I'm so excited to meet you guys in person. And thanks for coming on.
I better go train. I better start training.
Yeah. All right. Thanks so much, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Tim,
That's right. I was cooking now.
Yeah.
Bye, guys.